Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm glad you all could make it tonight. Um, welcome to our webinar about Social Security continuing disability reviews and overpayments with Jeffrey Rabin. Plus, we're going to do a NAMI CCNS year-end review recap. Jeff is from Jeffrey A. Rabin and Associates, his own law firm, and he's our executive director as well. My name's Courtney. I'm the program director at NAMI Cook County North Suburban. NAMI is one of the nation's largest grassroots mental health organizations that provides public awareness, no-cost support, and education programs online and in person so that people and families affected by mental health conditions can build better lives. We offer classes, support groups, presentations, and advocate for mental health. As I said, all of our programs are free and open to those in our community service areas. So this year, each month, we've been having mental health professionals dig deep into a variety of topics to further educate us on our community members' topics of interest. So this session will help individuals and families better understand how Social Security's continuing disability reviews work, why overpayments happen, and what steps you can take to prevent them. And then in addition, we'll share a brief year-end review of NAMI CCNS, highlighting our community impact, program success, and what's ahead for the upcoming year. Our Q&A will be held at the end of the presentation, but if you have any questions while Jeff and I are talking, feel free to put it in the chat box or raise your hand, and I can either relay that over to Jeff or answer that myself. Yeah, I'm so glad you are here tonight to join us. And I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thanks, Courtney, and hello, everybody. I so appreciate you coming and joining us tonight. Um, and really, kudos at the end of the year to Courtney Hall. She does an incredible amount of work to line up these webinars. It's not easy. It's not easy to come up with the topics. It's not easy to come up with the speakers and get everything coordinated and promoted on the website and our other social media. And and all the programming work that we do. Courtney just does an outstanding job, and I'm very, very proud to work with her. And the success we achieve is in large part due to her talent and hard work. So thank you, Courtney. So, as Courtney said, I wear two hats, and I sometimes do get confused over which hat I'm wearing. And today we're going to make it really challenging because I'm going to wear both at the same time. So, yes, I am executive director of NAMI Cook County North Suburban, and I've been in this role for almost exactly 3 years, since December of 2022. And for the last 44 years, I've been an attorney working and representing people with Social Security, disability, and SSI issues and trying to get them benefits. One of the things that Social Security attorneys in private practice try so hard to avoid are getting involved with problems relating to continuing disability reviews and overpayments. And I have found over the years, as really is true throughout all the issues in my law practice, that education is the best way to avoid these problems. So when Courtney asked me if I would address these issues at a NAMI CCNS webinar, I said, that's perfect, because we want this stuff to be out there. Now, a while ago, for actually the first of our modern set of online webinars, I did one on basic Social Security disability law and how we help people get benefits. And I'm not going to repeat that. That's still up on our YouTube page, and I think there's a link on our website to it. So for that, for the whole spiel, you can go there. But what we are going to do is cover some of the basics, because if you don't understand the basics, you can't understand what we're going to talk about with overpayments and continuing disability reviews. So before we go further, I'm going to attempt to share my screen. And Courtney, did that work? Do we see the front page?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about what the general law is. What does it mean to be totally disabled? We're going to very briefly talk about what SSDI is and what SSI is, because the rules for going back to work, even the rules for how to report to Social Security, are different between the two programs. So we want you to understand that. We also want you to understand what the law is really focused upon, because again, without that basic understanding, our discussion of continuing disability reviews won't make sense. Then we are going to talk about continuing disability reviews because if any of you have family members that are getting either SSDI or SSI benefits, you can expect to undergo a continuing disability review, especially with this administration and this Congress, more the Congress even than the administration. This is a huge priority for them. Then we'll talk about how to go back to work without creating an overpayment, because that's the goal. We're going to talk about what do you have to do if you're a representative payee, because a lot of NAMI parents are representative payees. And then we're going to talk about report, which will be the theme throughout the whole evening, because that's the key to everything. So let's start. What does it mean to be totally disabled under the Social Security Act? For me to get somebody benefits, either SSDI or SSI, I've got to prove the existence of permanent physical or mental impairment, which is of severe inclusive for ability to perform any substantial gainful activity periods that is lasted or expected to last at least 12 months or result in death. And I always say it like that because I don't want anybody writing down the legal mumbo jumbo, because that's all that is. Here's what it really means. In order for us to get somebody benefits, we have to be able to prove that they are suffering from medical symptoms that so impact their day-to-day function that for at least a period that's lasted a year or expected to last a year or result in death in a year, they'd be unable to perform any type of work activity available in the national economy. Now, I said that all very carefully. I did not say I have to prove my client has a diagnosis, because diagnosis is not determinative, except for some rare instances. People with bipolar work, people with cancer work, people with multiple sclerosis work, people with lupus work. The focus in a disability case is not on a diagnosis, but it's on the symptoms from those diagnoses and how those symptoms are impacting this particular person's ability to perform basic work activities. I get calls all day when I'm wearing my law firm hat from people saying, Mr. Rabin, I have high blood pressure and sugar diabetes and I want to get SSI. And my response is always the same. Those are serious medical problems. You have to take care of yourself. But watch your diet, take your medicine, get some exercise, and go get a job. Because while those are serious medical conditions, they generally do not produce symptoms that impact your ability to do basic work activities. So the focus is not on the label, the focus is on the symptoms from the label. So when somebody calls me up and they have a physical medical problem, a bad back, a breathing problem, a heart problem, my questions are always the same. What are the symptoms of that physical medical impairment? And how do they impact your ability to do the physical motions of a job? Sitting in a chair, standing, lifting, reaching, pushing, pulling. Those physical motions that are involved in every job, how are they impacted by the symptoms of that physical medical problem? If somebody calls me up and they're suffering from a mental impairment, major depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, PTSD, schizoaffective, agoraphobia. By far, the most common call we get is bipolar. What are the symptoms of that mental impairment? And how do those symptoms impact this person's ability to do the basic mental tasks in a job? Understanding and remembering simple instructions, interacting appropriately with supervisors and coworkers, concentrating and being able to complete tasks. I am, by the way, I apologize. I am at the tail end of a virus, and my cough and my still there, and my voice is not normal. So I apologize for that. But all these basic mental motions that are involved in every job, how are they impacted by the symptoms from whatever label the psychiatrist that month put on this person? You see, Social Security almost never denies the diagnosis. That's almost never an issue. The issue in a disability application is so what? He's got a back fusion. He's got a scar 6 inches down his back. We're not going to deny that. But so what? What are the symptoms from that back fusion? And how do they impact this particular person's ability to function in a job setting? Or turning the phrase around, what can this person still do on a sustained basis despite their medical problems? And they call that your residual functional capacity, what you can do despite your medical symptoms. And they develop at Social Security a residual functional capacity or RFC assessment for everybody that applies. In fact, by the time we go to see a judge in an administrative hearing, there might be 4 or 5 RFCs that Social Security's internal medical and vocational staff developed for this person. And then they take that RFC and they apply it to the mythical world of work. Remember, when we apply for benefits for somebody, it does not matter if they can get a job. It does not matter if they know how to do a job. It does not matter if they could get to the job. It does not matter if the job pays $9 an hour, especially for people under 50. At 50, it matters a little bit if they don't have a GED education. At 55, it matters a little more if they've only done unskilled physical work. But generally, those real world issues of how can my 22-year-old bipolar daughter do a job in Rockford when she lives in Joliet are not considered by Social Security. The focus in a disability case is on function. What can she do on a sustained basis despite those medical problems? If I can prove she cannot sustain work activity of any type, I win. If I cannot, I lose. And that's the basic law that applies to every SSDI and every SSI case. Now, we've used those phrases, so let's briefly describe them. Title II of the Social Security Act, Social Security Disability Insurance Benefits, regular benefits, workers' disability benefits, we'll call it SSDI. It's for people who are totally disabled and have worked and paid into the FICA system for enough quarters. The general rule for people 28 and over is they must have worked and paid FICA taxes for at least 40 quarters in their lifetime and for 20 quarters of the 40 preceding the date they became disabled. Take an example. I fall and hit my head today. It's December 2025. I go to the Social Security office and I say, I have traumatic brain injury. I want to apply for disability. The first thing they do is look up my work quarters and say if Jeff earned at least 40 quarters in his lifetime. I'm actually way over 40 years, so I got that one beat easily. Then they say, pull Jeff's earnings records from 2014 to 2024, the 10 years prior to the year I became totally disabled, and that I worked during at least 20 quarters during that time period. Work and pay into the Social Security system. If I did, I've paid in for enough quarters, I'm eligible for SSDI. If you're under 28, because you haven't don't have 10 years then as an adult, it's a math formula. And it's just take your age. So say they're 24 minus 18, because that's when they became an adult. That leaves 6 years, 4 quarters in a year. That means a maximum of 24 quarters. To qualify for SSDI, they must have worked for half of those or for 12 quarters. If we do not meet the quarters of coverage requirement, we look at the second program, which is Title 16 of the Social Security Act, or Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. We'll call it SSI this evening. SSI also has two requirements. First, you must be totally disabled, the exact same medical test as for SSDI. Second, you must be able to prove that you are indigent. Indigent for SSI purposes means no money coming into that person and less than $2,000 in non-excludable resources. What do we mean by non-excludable resources? You're allowed to own a house if you live in it. You don't have to be homeless. You're allowed one car because you need to go to the doctor, hospital, and therapist and pharmacy. They won't value your clothes, but bank accounts, savings accounts, checking accounts, 401ks, 203bs, cash value life insurance, poorly drafted family trusts. All of these count against the $2,000 limitation. So this is a program for people who are totally disabled and very limited financial resources. If they meet those requirements, they're eligible for SSI. So we have SSDI, SSI. Very important as a parent or a family member to know which program your family member is getting because the return to work rules vary depending upon which program they're on. In a mental health case, and in a pain case, in a scleroderma case, in an epilepsy case, in a lupus case, there are really four questions that matter. And this is especially true in mental health. And these four questions are not only the essence of getting disability, but they will also be the focus in a continuing disability review. And that's why I want to spend a couple of moments going through them. The first question, oh, there's a typo. Shame on you, Jeff. The first question that's asked when we read the notes of the therapist and we read the notes of the psychiatrist, what are they saying about this person's ability to understand, remember, or apply information? And on this point, we usually lose because we're talking about simple one or two step jobs. And for even my bipolar clients, if I ask them to pick up the book off my desk and move it over to the counter, they understand that that means getting up, picking up the book, and gently moving to the counter and putting it down. While they might not be functioning at their true genetic cognitive abilities, they understand simple one or two step instructions. This one really comes into play with people with severe um, learning impairments or for people with chronic psychotic disorders that aren't resolved by medication. So then we go to question number two. Question number two asks, when we read the notes of the therapist and we read the notes of the psychiatrist, what are they documenting regarding our client's symptoms and their impact on her ability to interact with other people? How does she get along with mom? How does she get along with dad? How does she get along with her brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews? Is she able to go to the grocery store and stand in line and say thank you, or does she want to punch the clerk out for moving too slow? Does she have road rage? Does she isolate? Does she break things? Does she skip Christmas dinner with her family or miss family weddings and funerals? If there's nothing in the medical charts, we lose. If it's an intermittent problem, it's there sometimes, it's not other times, she can do some things, we lose. You don't have to have a lot of social interaction to be a punch press operator. But if I read these charts week after week and month after month, then it becomes very obvious that if she were working the punch press and the foreman came by every couple of hours and said, "Hey, how are things going here?" that she would take a wrench and throw it at his head and tell him, "Go away." That's what Social Security calls a serious or marked impairment in social functioning. And that person would have a hard time working. And Social Security takes that seriously and they go to question three. Question three asks, when we read the medical charts, what are they documenting regarding our client's symptoms and their impact on her ability to concentrate, persist, or maintain work pace? How's her focus? How's her attention span? Can she watch a TV show all the way through? Or does she get ants in her pants after a few minutes and wander around and lose track of the plot? Is she able to balance a checkbook? Does she leave food burning on the stove all the time because she doesn't remember? Does she leave clothes in the laundry? Does she forget to turn off the car when she comes in the house? How's her ability to persist and complete tasks? When she starts something, does she finish it? Or does she go from thing to thing to thing to thing and drive her dad nuts because all this stuff is left half done all over the house? Again, if there's nothing in the charts on this, we lose. If it's a mild or moderate, or she's only complaining about it on occasion with the doctors and the counselors, we lose. It doesn't take a lot of concentration to be on an assembly line, see the piece, pick it up, put it in the box, see the piece, pick it up, put it in the box. But if we find that this is really a chronic week after week, month after month symptom that's really frustrating our client, well, that's a big deal. That's what they call a marked impairment in concentration that would impact her ability to sustain work and be a big deal to Social Security. And they would go to question four. Question four, the last question, and these are the four issues in every single mental health case. Question four asks, when we read the notes from the therapist and the psychiatrist, what are they documenting week after week and month after month over this longitudinal period of time about symptoms and their impact on our client's ability to adapt or manage himself? Does he get out of bed every day? Does he shower? Does he shave? Does he make his room up? Does he clean the house? Does he walk the dog? What are the charts documenting regarding his ability to cope with stress, with authority figures, with criticism? If there's nothing in the charts on this, or it's only an intermittent, occasionally complained about problem, we lose. You don't have to look or smell so good to sweep the floors of a factory. But if this is a very chronic, week after week, month after month complaint over this longitudinal period of time, well, that's considered a marked impairment in adaptation or managing your life. To qualify for benefits, to be found totally disabled, especially for people under 50, but to meet these requirements, two of these four questions must be documented as markedly or seriously impaired. So these are really focused issues. People come to me and say, well, over the last 5 years, I've had 5 hospitalizations. My response is, that's terrible. That tells us you have some issues. But at the end of each hospitalization in the discharge summary, they say condition stable or condition improved. So the judge says he had a bad week, go back to work. So those do not inform us as to how our client is functioning right now. And it does not inform us as to those four questions right now. And those four questions really are how this case is going to get decided. So, three key rules to proving those four questions. Rule number one, they must be going to the doctor. You must be going to the doctor. You must be going to the doctor. Doctors are everything. When I go as a claimant or a claimant to Social Security and say, I want disability benefits, what I say is never evidence that can be used to get a case approved. And that's because I want the money. As far as Social Security is concerned, I would testify under oath that I still had a full head of curly brown hair, which I still miss sometimes, um, if that would get me $900 a month. What my mom would say, what my wife would say, what my child would say, what my next door neighbor would say, none of that is evidence to support a case because those people generally like me. The only thing that's evidence in a disability case, and the only thing that's going to make a difference, are the clinical charts of the treating specialists. So in mental health case, that's the treating counselor or therapist, along with the treating psychiatrist. Can't have one or the without the other. I mean, theoretically, you could have a psychiatrist alone, but unless that psychiatrist is doing hour-long therapy visits, you're not going to find out from those notes if your child is showering or changing clothes or whether they can watch a TV show, because psychiatrists don't ask those questions. That's where therapists become so important. Rule number two, there's a right way and a wrong way to go to the doctor. I'll give you the abbreviated version of the story I usually tell. But my folks have been gone for a long time. My brothers and I were very lucky, and I learned a lot from my folks. My dad had a small roofing company, and he was a tough guy. And he'd be up there on the roof using the hatchet, and I'm a klutz, and I kind of got it from him. And whack, he'd hit his arm with the hatchet, but he wouldn't stop the job. He'd spit on it, he'd put a glavatar on it, and he'd finish the job and not complain. He had to get the job done. My dad never complained. I learned I don't complain. Well, Courtney, don't contradict me now. The other thing about my dad, he was a big flirt and he loved to flirt. And I learned from him, and I'm a pretty good flirt too. Well, here's what happens though. I'm seeing my psychiatrist, and she's a very nice person, and she's got a very nice smile. And I've gotten to know her because she's been treating me for 2 or 3 years, and I don't want to tick her off. So I have an appointment with her today. What do? I do the same thing every one of you all do. I shower, I put on a clean shirt, I pat down what's left to be patted down. I walk into the office. She says, "Hi, Jeff, how are you?" And I say, "I'm fine, Doc. How are you?" And I just lost my disability case. Because what does she chart? Well-groomed, nice man says he's okay. I lied. Now, I lied because I was being polite. But when you mislead your doctors, two things happen. Number one, you might have the best psychiatrist in Chicago, but that psychiatrist is a lousy mind reader. And if you don't tell her what's going on in your life, she can't help you because she's not following you around with a camera. Second thing that happens, I have lousy notes and they don't reflect the truth, and I'm going to lose getting benefits that my client should have been entitled to. So, family members, make sure that your family member who's treating is complaining, or more using different words, is telling the truth. I teach my clients, talk about the guy that you see in the mirror, because that mirror has no ego. And just pretend you're following that client, that guy in the mirror around, and talk about his life and his limitations and his frustrations. You'll get mad, you'll cry, you'll pound the table, but you'll get better medical care and your notes will be accurate. Rule number three, Social Security wants specialists. A family doctor prescribing a Prozac is not evidence of depression. So in mental health, it's either a combination of a psychiatrist with a therapist or a good PhD or PsyD psychologist. For fibromyalgia, it's a rheumatologist or a pain specialist. For seizures, it's a neurologist. For back pain, it's the orthopedic or the pain doctor. Family doctors have a very little role to play in most Social Security disability cases. So, three rules. Got to go to the doctor, got to communicate truthfully, and you've got to be seeing the right doctors. And that's how you get the evidence to win a case. And again, all of this is going to tie in with my continuing disability review. So, last thing, remember, it's all about the charts, about the charts. This is my slide to my 9-year-old grandson, Mason, who likes the song It's All About the Bass, About the Bass. So, in our case, it's all about the charts, about the charts. This is the standard appeal and apply and appeal process for a typical case. Doesn't apply in a CDR. It's slightly different. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So let's get into this. I'm on benefits. I won my case. It took a year and a half. I had to hire that Rabin law firm in order to get it. It was a lot of work. And that Jeff Rabin, man, he yelled at me, go to the doctor, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. I'm not dealing with him anymore. I stopped going to the doctor. Doctor told me couldn't do anymore. My insurance changed. I got tired of the guy. Whatever. I'm getting my checks. And then I get a letter followed up by a phone call from an adjudicator. Hi, Jeff. I'm doing a continuing disability review on you. And the test in a continuing disability review is there evidence of medical improvement sufficient to allow you to return to work? And you know what? We're nice at Social Security, so we're going to start with your doctors and give your doctors first crack at this. Who's your doctor? And I stumble and fumble and I say, well, I haven't talked to Jeff in a couple of years, and so I haven't seen the doctor in a year. And a big smile comes to the adjudicator's face. Don't worry, buddy, I'll send you to one of ours for a Social Security consultative exam. Well, in a physical case, a Social Security exam could mean get on the table, get off the table, walk heel to toe, and how many fingers am I holding up? In a mental health case, it could be as basic as a general mental health status exam. Name three presidents, name three big cities, give me the difference between an apple and an orange, and what would you do with a stamped envelope? And you pass that, there's medical improvement, and benefits are going to be terminated. So, for those of you working with family members who are getting benefits, what are the three rules? Even if they're getting benefits, they must be going to the doctor, they must be describing their symptoms, and they must continue to see the appropriate specialist. And that's a good thing. Remember, and I teach this to every single one of my young adult clients, the goal is not to get on SSI. The goal is to use SSI as a time break, giving you some very basic financial assistance, securing your access to the healthcare system, and giving you time to treat, recover, retrain, and ultimately return to work. So we want in our case, our former clients, to use this time to really actively treat so that they could possibly get better. And when they have a continuing disability review, then there will be evidence as to their ongoing symptoms and problems, and they won't be unnecessarily terminated. Everyone should expect that there will be a review in their case. Every approved application is secretly coded by Social Security's internal staff on when they think there should be medical improvement, and that'll trigger the continuing disability review in that case. A number of years ago, and it really hasn't happened very much in Chicago, I haven't heard of it but once or twice, But Social Security does have surveillance units on people. But in Chicago, it's not very prominent. You must be going to the doctors. And that's not a bad requirement because we do want people to be safe and do want to try to maximize their chance of going back to work. Now, with CDRs, there are some pitfalls. Got to remember, these are medical cases, and the decision's going to be made on medical charts. People get letters from Social Security and throw them in a drawer or throw them in the wastebasket and don't respond and lose time and lose benefits. If you get something from Social Security, respond. Many people go to the office. My rule for my clients, I never want them to go to the Social Security office alone. They're stressful. The staff is generally not, they're not evil people, but they're highly stressed and highly overworked and often short or frustrated or having a big stack on their desk. And my client's disabled and has a pain problem or has a concentration problem, and they're never going to remember what that person said. So always bring a non-disabled family member or friend when you go to the office. And also, it's just human nature. People are more careful with their advice and what they say when there's a witness present. So always go to the Social Security office with somebody. Try to avoid going alone. It's amazing how many people go and will spend 20, 30 minutes with a Social Security staff person and never write down their name or get their telephone number. And then they have a question and they have no idea who they spoke with and they can't call them back or follow up. So always get the name and telephone number if possible. Social Security staff they'll never give you their full name. They'll usually give you a first name and an initial, or they'll give you just their last name. Um, but write it down and keep notes on what you talked about when you go home because this stuff is confusing and it's very easy to forget or not misinterpret what people have said. So keep your notes. The way the system works, if when you have the initial determination of whether or not there's medical improvement, if Social Security finds there's medical improvement in the key condition that was the basis for disability to begin with, before benefits are terminated, they have to follow their own process of looking at any other medical conditions that may have developed since the time the person was put on disability and evaluate those new or other worsening medical conditions, the symptoms they cause, and evaluate their impact on function. Sometimes it's a combination of symptoms from multiple problems that cause people to be still disabled and kept on the program. Finally, if people are terminated and believe they should be kept on the program, and there is evidence that they have not had medical improvement, if you file your appeal in writing or online within 10 days of the date of the termination letter, you can elect to keep your benefits ongoing all the way through the appeal process, all the way up to and through your hearing with the administrative law judge. But to maintain that benefit, you do have to file your appeal within 10 days of the determination that you have had medical improvement. So that's why when you get letters from Social Security, open them, read them, and respond. We okay so far? All right, let's shift gears a little bit. You're on disability and you are doing better and you want to go back to work, but you want to go back to work without risking overpayments and problems with Social Security. How do you do this? First, you have to understand your rights, and they're different based on whether you're on SSDI or SSI. So let's first talk about SSDI. Somebody has three benefits under the under the SSDI program if they want to return to work. The first benefit is really cool, and it's called the trial work period. And this says that you can work, earn as much as you can, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 a month, and still keep your SSDI benefit. So life is good because you've got cash flow coming in from both work and from Social Security. You're allowed 9 trial work period months, but it's not 9 months in a row because that would be way too easy. Instead, it's 9 months out of any 60-month slice of time. Let's take some examples. I go on disability in 2019. I worked 3 months in 2022, 3 months in 2024, 3 months in 2025. I've used up my trial work period because from 2022 to 2025 is less than 60 months. I worked 9. I've used up my trial work period. Let's say I went on disability in 2017. I worked 3 months in 2018, 3 months in 2022, 3 months in 2025. By 2025, those months I worked in 2018 are outside of the 60-year slice of time. So those 2018 months drop off the edge of the table and they don't count anymore. So you do have to keep track when you do try to work of how long you worked for and how much you made. Because a trial work period month this year, 2026 year, is used up every time you earn $1,210 gross in a month. So it doesn't take a lot of earnings to use up one trial work period month. Last year in 2025, it was $1,160 gross in a month to use up a trial work period. Um, each year it goes up with the cost of living increase. The key is reporting to Social Security, and we'll talk more about that. But 9 months for somebody who's been permanently and totally disabled with really serious medical issues, 9 months doesn't tell us a lot, and the law recognizes that. So there's two more benefits for people on SSDI wanting to go back to work. The second one is called the extended period of eligibility. And here's the safety net. So you've been on SSDI, you've worked 9 months and used up your trial work period, but you're still at risk. And Social Security recognizes that. So now for the next 36 months, 3 more years after the end of the trial work period, any month where you earn $1,690 gross in a month, they're not going to give you a check. But if at any time in the next 3 years you become unable to make $1,690 gross in a month, you relapse on your original condition. You develop a new condition. Or it might be something as simple as the company closed and you're not making $1,690 gross in a month, right back on the program, no questions asked. So people are covered for another 3 years after the end of the trial work period. Third benefit, people can keep their Medicare because on SSDI you get Medicare as opposed to Medicaid. You can keep your Medicare for the whole 9 month trial work period. You can keep your Medicare for the 3 year extended period of eligibility. You can keep your Medicare for another 4.5 years after that, even though you're off the program. So you can keep your Medicare for 99 months after you return to work. Now, thank goodness for the Affordable Care Act, because that eliminated the issue of pre-existing conditions. That's why this Medicare extension was added to the program. Because back at that time, if you had pre-existing medical problems, and every single one of these people do, you couldn't get health insurance. So this extended Medicare gave somebody 8 years or 9 years of work where they could work and still be covered by Medicare insurance. Little less of an issue now because of the Affordable Care Act, but with politics these days, we don't know if the Affordable Care Act is in, out, over, modified, subsidized, not subsidized. We don't have a clue. So this third benefit still has value. So those are the rules for SSDI and going back to work. The rules are slightly different for SSI. Because remember, I told you in the beginning that SSI is means tested. You have to have no money coming in and less than $2,000 in non-excludable resources. You work, you got money coming in. So they do a math formula. And basically, what they do is they take the first $85 that you earn. It's 65 for one reason, 20 for another. And honestly, I don't remember what they're for, but it's $85 combined. It's a number that hasn't changed since 1979. They exclude $85. And after that, they reduce your next SSI check by $1 for every two that you earned. So let's take an example. I'm on SSI and I do some door-to-door sales and I make $285. They ignore the first 85. That leaves 200 left. It's a 1 for 2 reduction. In 2025, my SSI was 964. A 1 for 2 deduction of the remaining $200 is $100, which means next month instead of 964 in SSI, I'll get 864. But if we take 864 plus the 285 that I made, I'm still way ahead of the game. So it's always better to work, and we want people to work if they're able to. But there is an impact on their SSI benefits. The key to all of this is reporting. How do I report to Social Security? If you're on SSDI or SSI, you're obligated to report if you move. You're obligated to report if you change banks. You're obligated to report if you get married. You're obligated to report if you get a job and work. Well, a lot of people report to Social Security by calling up the 1-800 number, and they can hear Mrs. Smith, who's delightful and pleasant, typing out their information. Is she typing their information or is she writing a letter to her sister? You'll never know, and you can't prove a telephone call. You can't prove that you sent something by regular US mail and it got lost. The best way to report are electronically. If the beneficiary is on SSI, there's a phone app called the Social Security Mobile Wage Reporting app, and they can report their gross earnings each month right on the app. It goes right into Social Security's computers. There's an email receipt, and you can prove that um, you can prove that you reported. If you're on SSDI, you go to your computer or your phone, you go to Social Security's website, you open an account if you haven't already for My Social Security. And if any of you have not done that for yourselves yet, you should. And then you do all your reporting right on your My Social Security account. It goes right into Social Security. You have proof that you reported, and you can rest assured that you satisfied your responsibilities under the Act. Reporting is critical. Don't do it tomorrow. Don't do it next week. You'll forget. Do it as soon as the issues come up. A very common question we get in our office is, what about representative payees? because representative payees can be liable for overpayments incurred on behalf of the beneficiaries if the representative payee either misused the funds or had knowledge of the basis for the overpayment, like their child got married and never reported it to Social Security. So representative payees are required to determine the beneficiary's needs and use the money for those basic needs: housing, clothing, education, food. They must keep records. What I recommend to representative payees is just use Quicken or QuickBooks. The money gets direct deposited into the bank account. Link the bank account to your Quicken or QuickBooks and just do every transaction off the computer. You can pay bills off your computer. You can um, transfer money off the computer. You can do ACHs off the computer. And you just take out some cash now and then to give to the claimant for walk around money or beneficiary. But if you do everything right off Quicken or QuickBooks or whatever computer-based bookkeeping system you want to use, then it'll be very easy to generate a year-end report if Social Security asks for one and be able to turn it in. You must be able to prove what monies were received and what monies were spent. Never commingle money. Never put your money in with an SSI recipient's, or even put other money for the SSI recipient. If they get a job, don't put that money in the SSI account. Keep that SSI account separate, only for SSI benefits. We want to avoid representative payees being personally responsible for overpayments. Whoops. Please stay part of NAMI Cook County North Suburban. Um, NAMI makes a difference. We're peer-led. We try to reach people that and help people where the traditional medical systems have helped, but they still need additional support. Everything we do is free. We don't charge for any of our programs. You can support us by joining, volunteering, or even contributing. We can all walk the talk. Our Hope and Hops program, which is a very informal meet and greet for Courtney and I and the rest of the staff, will be at Sketchbook Brewery in Skokie on February 24th. And our gala on Derby Day, we're going to have the Derby Gala, will be on May 2nd, 2026. It's our major fundraiser. Also, please, if you haven't completed your year-end giving or still have thoughts of people that you want to help, the annual appeal at this time of year is a major, major source of financial support for NAMI CCNS. And you can go right on our website and make a donation. You can call the office and talk to Courtney or me or Marcy Larson, our Director of Marketing and Development. We we don't take government money. We get no money from the federal government. We get no money from the state government. Occasionally, we'll get some help from the local townships, but the vast bulk of our support comes from the people that watch these webinars, either in person or online later, or from people that come to our programs. So please help us out. And that's supposed to be Cook County. I again went too fast. I apologize. Courtney Hall is our program director. I'm the executive director. You have Courtney's NAMI email, my NAMI email, and my law firm email. If we can help, please do not hesitate to contact us. And Courtney, I hope I didn't go too long, but I'm done. Are there any questions in the chat? I didn't look.
There's a few, yeah.
You want to go through those now, or do you?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Um, I'll read the most recent and then I'll go up. Um, One was in TWP. I think that was a trial work. I'm sorry, I don't remember the
Trial
acronym.
work period. Very good.
Period. You can earn more than the 12 $1,210 and keep it, um, the $1,210 determines if that month counts for one of the nine.
Correct. That's an exact right definition. You keep all your earnings, but once you hit $1,210 gross in a month, not net, but gross, you've used up one trial work period month.
Um, One other one was, do you have any thoughts about what our state governor could do to help disabled people with housing, employment, and education?
So, um, Governor Pritzker has actually been outstanding in the mental health world, and this General Assembly has actually been very, very good. I mean, the state doesn't have a ton of money, but some of the bills that they passed in this last General Assembly in the mental health world have actually been very, very positive and very favorable. And in fact, we're hoping to honor and recognize some of our local legislators at our gala. And that's actually an email I have to get out. So I'm glad you reminded me. Um, there's just not a ton of funding. One of the real problems that's coming up, and I don't know if you've been reading about this, it's very in the weeds, is that the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, which is responsible for the grants that provide transitional assistance and permanent supportive living arrangements for people with disabilities, with mental impairments, physical impairments, substance abuse, came out with their rules and they changed them dramatically. So much so that thousands and thousands of people across the country would lose their housing. There was such an outcry over how literally how cruel this was. And they changed this like in the middle of when people are in multi-year grants. They actually just withdrew it last week or 2 weeks ago. They withdrew these proposed rules because they were really, really unfair. So we're really got to hope the federal government comes back and fulfills its role as the funder for a lot of the housing programs to prevent homelessness from getting worse. The governor and the state have actually done pretty well. You'll get very few complaints from the advocacy community in this state about our particular state government in this regard. Other issues, maybe, but in terms of housing and mental health, Governor Pritzker and the General Assembly have come through.
Great. What about, do you have any thoughts about Illinois making its own disability insurance program, like New York or California?
Yeah, that would be wonderful, but not in this economic day and age. It's not going to happen. Those are hyper expensive, multi-billion dollar programs. And Illinois is already one of the most heavily taxed states in the country. Um, and Chicago is struggling to find out how to figure out how to pay its bills already. So taxes there aren't going to look good in the next year or two. It would be wonderful if this happened because it would fill in the gap. Even today, I was speaking with a young woman who's got a chronic, severe psychotic disorder, but she's got to try to work because her disability case could take a year and a half to go through, and she's got nowhere to go. And so she's going to struggle trying to stay off the streets, which isn't going to help her psychotic disorder, while we try to get her disability benefits. So it would be great to have something in the interim there, but I don't see it happening. I don't think there's any likelihood at all.
Yeah. Okay, I can move on to my presentation.
Thank you, everybody.
If you have
And
any
I'll,
other questions, feel free to put them in the chat.
oh, hey, John.
Okay, this look okay to you guys? Can you
Yes.
see it? Okay. Okay, I'm just going to briefly go through how this past year has looked for our affiliate program wise. So just to sort of look at it through its data lens, we have grown a lot with the number of programs we have offered, support groups we've offered, and the people that we have reached. Um, it's been pretty amazing. I put a little bar chart that compares the data that we had from last year to this year just to see how much it has grown. Um, it's really amazing. Our volunteers help us with this work so much too. So I don't want that to get lost. But yeah, we have done great this year with the people that we have reached. And then I just wanted to mention some highlights. We held four family to family classes with 60 graduates. We did 15 Ending the Silence presentations and reached about 959 students. 28 in our own voice presentations with 366 attendees, three Golem Greens, which reached 6,612 students. And then we have 62 and counting volunteers. So we're reaching a lot of people with our programs. Some new programs that we did this year that I'm excited to share about. One is called Family Insight. So that's a monthly group that provides support and education for family members. Um, it's usually attended by people who have graduated from our family to family class or who have attended our family support groups. Each class covers a topic about how family members can continue to learn about mental health, how to support themselves, and how to support their loved ones. So far this year, we've held 10 sessions with over 150 people who have attended. We also started Chai and Chat, which is a NAMI program. It's a three-part community conversation for the South Asian community. We partnered with an organization called Sanjivani to help us run these, as well as some individuals that helped us run some sessions. We held 10 altogether in total, with 79 people who attended those sessions. And then we also started Peer-to-Peer, which is an 8-week educational class for adults with a mental health condition. We have held one class so far. We started that back in the fall, and that class had 7 people graduate. And then just some upcoming stuff for the new year. We are going to have a mental health series for adults 55 and plus at the Skokie Public Library. It will just be a series about mental health and wellness for older adults. We're hoping to reach this community more and hopefully develop more programming for the older adult community. And then within our own voice, we are forming a partnership with Lutheran Hospital to host presentations there. In our own voice is where a person shares their mental health experience. So our presenters will be traveling to a unit where people are currently getting treatment for their mental illness to share their story. We're very excited about that partnership. Another one, we got a grant to implement a new NAMI pilot program called Creative Minds. It's supporting young people's well-being through creative expression, using visual art and creative writing exercises. So we got these actual toolkits that we're going to implement in schools. Next week, my colleague will be going to the library to do our first program there, but we're excited to do that and the more creative aspect of it. We are going to start a NAMI on campus, which is a student-led mental health club that raises awareness, education. They advocate and they support their peers. We're talking with Oakton Community College right now. Really excited to involve college students and get them talking about mental health. Um, and then for ending the silence, we will be going to Notre Dame College Prep in May and speaking to students there. We did a program there earlier this year, sort of as an introduction. And we will be going back and doing more presentations there. And then I wanted to share, so we will have a webinar next month in January with Family Service Center. After that, our webinars will be held quarterly. Um, this is just so I can have more time to plan, and better equip these webinars and find professionals to speak for you all. Um, yeah, I just wanted to let you all know, but we're excited to keep having them. Yeah, so then one after that should maybe be in April or May. And then I just wanted to share a couple photos from this year that we've taken at some of our programs. Some of them are from Go I'm Green, Ending the Silence. We had a volunteer event. That's the bottom left picture with some of our volunteers, not all of them. We have like 60 volunteers, so that's only about a quarter. But that was an amazing event. The top right was at a family to family reunion. So those are people who have all taken the class. There's lots more photos, but this just highlights some good times. Yeah, just wanted to say thank you all for coming to these events. Thank you for your support. If you ever have any questions, want to get involved, want to know more, please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer anything. Um, yeah, and thank you. I will stop sharing. I see that there's some questions in the chat.
So there's one there's one which I'll answer, and then I just have one more thing to say. Cheryl had a question. If suspended on SSDI due to higher income, can you get your benefits reinstated? Uh, Assuming you're on SSDI, not SSI, and assuming that you're still in that 3 month or 3 year, 36-month extended period of eligibility, the answer is yes. Because if you just fall back under the $1,690 gross in a month and you're still within 3 years of the end of your trial work period, your benefit should be reinstated. If you've gone past the 3 year extended period of eligibility, then you've got to file a new application. You could try an expedited reinstatement. It doesn't happen easily. You may have to start all over again. Um, if you've been earning that much money and you're just voluntarily cutting back your hours, it's going to be a hard time getting medical charts showing you're totally disabled again because you've been earning a lot of money. So it may not be that easy. And the focus should, at that point, probably be on doing better and continuing at work than trying to be on SSDI. So thank you. The other thing I want to say is all of those numbers that you saw and all of that work, Courtney is our only full-time employee. I work part-time here, and so do the other two staff members. We're very small but very powerful, and we're very proud of the work that we do. But we're capped. We need your support. We need you to volunteer. Courtney will find something for you to do. Heather will find something for you to do. Marcy will find something for you to do. We need your support. We need you to show up to Hope and Hops. We need you to show up to our walk. We need you to show up to our golf outings. We need you to come to the gala. We need you to ask your companies to support us. Ask your bosses. Ask your uncles that have businesses. We need that support. The work we do is so vital. I am so proud to work with somebody like Courtney, and I just want to continue to see her success in this work. And the only way we can do that is with your help. So please join us in this mission. Thank you. Courtney, good job tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Anyone have any last standing questions? All good. Okay. Thank you all for joining us. I really appreciate your presence tonight. I hope you have a great holiday season. Stay warm. Yeah, and I hope to see you in the new year.
Everybody stay healthy. Thank you. Hey, Murray. Bye-bye. Thank you, Sarah.